Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're heading back into Showdown to honor a tier 3 sub request to the channel, and we're looking at Dialga-Origin today for a little bit of a team building session. So this is a request that you can do with the tier 3 sub perk where we can pick a Pokemon and we can build a whole team around it, okay? And I will do my very best to give you exactly what it is you're looking for. So the user wanted to build around Dialga-Origin, and right away, I'm already thinking of a few things. First of all, I look at its typing, I look at its stats, and I also look at the abilities. So this way, we can create a best fit synergy around a restricted that just normally isn't that great or isn't used much at all because it has a lot of things holding it back, and we're going to talk about those things. But, just on paper, in terms of stats, it actually looks pretty solid. Like, HP, 100 base, 120 base defense, 120 special defense. So triple digits in the bulk. And anytime you can get that, that's really, really good. So that means Dialga is super bulky and going to be pretty hard to remove. Special attack 150. That's also very solid, for a restricted legendary. So that's also pretty good as well. Steel Dragon typing is also pretty okay in itself. I do like that typing. The ability Telepathy, right? So that means, you're not going to take any damage if you have a Pokemon next to it that's also going to hit yourself. So think something like Earthquake, you're not going to take any damage. Think Discharge, think Bulldoze, stuff like that. Dialga just doesn't really care about, right? So, and just on paper looking at it, like, okay, we can technically use this restricted. It's just not overpowered than some of the other spread use restricted users. Right? Think about Miraidon Discharge, think about Calyrex going for Glacial Lances, and Astral Barrages. There's just no drawback to those restricteds, and they have insane stats too. So they're gonna outclass Dialga in itself. So that's also why something like this restricted is gonna be in something like the C tier, gonna be pretty niche in what it can do. But it does have some tools that to the table that you can consider in terms of your building, right? So already I look at Telepathy, so that just makes me think about physical Ursaluna, where again I'm going to be clicking the Earthquake button, and Dialga's just not going to care, right? And now if only this thing had Discharge, then we can go for Earthquake Discharge stuff because you're a ground type, you don't really care about Discharge. And now what we also considered in the session that we're not going to build in the team, but we also looked at Vikavolt. And if you think about it, this is also a pretty decent Pokemon that can thrive under Trick Room, has a ton of special attack damage, outspeeds the Calyrex Ice Rider in Trick Room, right? And you can hit it super hard with something like Bug Buzz, right? And anytime you can slap on a Life Orb on a Vikavolt and then just click Bug Buzz, you can just deal so much damage into the Calyrex Ice Rider. Depending on their investment or depending on your rolls, you can actually just pick it up immediately, right? So then if you do something like Discharge, Ursaluna doesn't care about that. You're a ground type, like we said. You can Earthquake next to Vikavolt because you have Levitate, so there is potential for this combination. And then at the same time, you are Dialga, you have Telepathy, you don't care about Discharge. So we did consider this, but the problem is that you only have 6 slots on your team, and you kind of need those options, to at least give you a matchup into some other popular threats. So eventually the Vikavolt was dropped, but it was pretty fun when we did use it, for the time being. But in the end, it just did not pull its own weight in terms of the format itself and what the meta was giving us. So we had to take it out and we had to put something else in its slot. But it was a pretty good idea on paper, right? You can kind of see it, right? So, it's just focused around these two. This is going to be the core of any Dialga-Origin team, in my opinion. You have to take advantage of the Earthquake from the Ursaluna, right? And, Ursaluna being a ground and a normal type, just like the Blood Moon, it's going to be good into something like Miraidon, right? Because, again, Miraidon is an electric type. 3 of its moves are going to be electric moves. If it has a choice spec set, you're a ground type. You don't care about that. And then, you are a normal type, so Astral Barrage does not matter to you. Now, the only drawback, for Ursaluna, of course, is unlike the Blood Moon, you cannot hit the Ghost type, with a Facade, which is also what we're going to run on the Ursaluna. So you're going to be forced to click your ground move, and just most oftentimes than not, unless it's been chipped, the ground move is not going to KO. Unless you also have Headlong Rush, that can do the job there. But this is basically close combat. You just have to be careful in how you use your Headlong Rushes. But at the very least, Ursaluna does give us a decent matchup into something like Miraidon and the Calyrex Shadow Rider. So that helps us there. Okay, obviously we're going to have the Flame Orb here. Okay, and, you know, just protecting the slot. So this is going to be the core of this duo, right? Here's your physical Trick Room Sweeper, and here's your special Trick Room Sweeper. Where is the Trick Room coming from? Of course, it's going to be coming from Dialga-Origin. You know, think about regular Dialga back in, you know, previous formats where it was a bulky Trick Room setter that can deal decent damage. Okay, and of course you have stuff like Flash Cannon, you know, Steel Coverage, going to be good against Fairy types, especially other things that want to go Terra Fairy. Your Dragon move is going to be up to you depending on if you want Dragon Pulse, oh, that's Dragon Breath, if you want Pulse, or if you want, of course, Draco Meteor, right? Now, from here, you have the other option to go for more coverage and just go straight Earth Power, you know, going for that special ground move, or you can just go for Protect here. You know, it's situational. It depends on you, but if you don't want Protect, obviously, I do think you really need that Earth Power coverage. I think it's really nice on Dialga-Origin. Okay, so it's up to you, the viewer. But at the time of testing with the session that we had with the viewer, we just ended up going with Protect just to be safe. It's always good in doubles. All right, so the one thing I will say before I continue the team, okay, you have to give a reason why you would want to like use Dialga-Origin as opposed to like some other restrictor, right? Because there's going to be other Pokemon that can do the job better, and maybe you don't even have to commit a restricted slot if it just is the same essential Pokemon, just a little bit better in what it can do. All right, so if I'm thinking about a bulky Trick Room setter that can deal damage, honestly, I would just immediately go with Lunala. I think it's just a better restricted in the format right now, given where it's at. You know, you look at its bulk, like 137 HP versus 100, much better. You know, 107 compared to 120. Yes, it does have the edge there, and of course the defense is much better on Dialga-Origin. But that being said, you know, Shadow Shield is a very, very good ability, right? And that kind of compensates for a little bit lower stats in the bulk, but it's still bulky as it is. And, you know, unlike, you know, Dialga, Amoongus can actually heal Lunala with, you know, Pollen Puff, whereas you can't really do that for Dialga-Origin, right? And then you can boost its attack by not even having to commit an item here, right? So, you know, you've got Meteor Beam here in that sense, and then, you know, you got Moongeist, Moonblast, or you know what I'm saying, right? So you can even just do stuff like this, and Lunala already just looks like a better restricted than the Dialga-Origin, right? In terms of being that bulky Trick Room setter. Or you can also do something like this, where you look at the typing and say, who else is a Steel Dragon in the format that's also pretty solid? And that's going to be Arkeladin here. So, you know, you don't have to commit your restricted slot, you know, if you wanted a Steel Dragon type. And Arkeladin has a lot more utility than Dialga, but I feel like it's only really strong if you use a Kyogre team, right? So in this sense, you kind of have to play Kyogre right now if you really want to take full advantage of Arkeladin's sets here. You know, obviously a little bit lower in the bulk, especially with special defense, but, you know, Electro Shot in the rain is going to be good. Body Press, along with actually having access to an item like Assault Vest is going to be good, right? So this is going to be solid, you know, where Arkeladin is getting all these defense boosts, and you're compensating for the lack of Spedef with the Assault Vest here. So, you know, you can go for Body Press against stuff like, you know, the Terrapagos. You can boost your own damage with Electroshot. You don't need an item for that, like unlike Dialga. And then at the same time, you know, you have your own Draco Meteor, where even if you're dropping your attack, you know, you can just boost it right back with the Electroshot if you're already in the rain in that sense, right? So, you know, Arkeladin could be a better option depending on how you view the scenario. You know, I feel like you just have to play Kyogre with it. But if you just said, you know what, I just want, you know, Dialga-Origin, then okay, we'll just have to make the team work, right? So, all right, so, you know, Steel Coverage, not bad into the Ice Rider, okay? It's okay. You know, you don't really do super big damage into anything else. You know, some of the Dragon Restrictors, you can click Draco Meteor if you can get Trick Room up against something like Miraidon. Zamazenta matchup, yeah, you just have to be careful. You have two fighting weaknesses here. So just be aware, but you do have a ground type against it, so that's not bad. It's almost like Ursaluna's the restricted here, right? We're just supporting Ursaluna with Dialga here. So just be aware of that. I do think Incineroar could be a little bit interesting just because you can intimidate the Ursaluna, And then unless you have Earth Power on this Dialga, you're not going to do so much damage to it. You have to like commit the Draco Meteor, which is where like I do think the Earth Power is going to be sometimes necessary on this. But that's just my take on it, right? So where do we go from here in terms of like having this? You got your 2 sweepers. You can have Amoongus here. You can click Spore and put pressure that way. And then I think Incineroar is just an absolute must here. You know, just for the things that it can do for your squad here. You know, just in terms of Intimidate and Fake Out pressure. You just, you know, clicking Fake Out, setting up your Trick Room, then going for the patented Parting Shot, weakening the opponent, and then just positioning into the Ursaluna that way. So this way you're poised to sweep, you know, with the Earthquake stuff next to, you know, good solid single target damage. I think this is the way to start it in terms of what we wanted to do. But then from here, look, you've got a Fire type, you've got a Grass type. What else do I need? I do need a Water type. And, you know, if I'm running Trick Room, I'm already thinking one thing right now. And if you've been watching my recent videos, you know I've been having fun with bulky, slow, Mystic Water Urshifu. And it just does so well under Trick Room. And you have good bulk that the opponent just does not expect. And it's a great solid breaker under Trick Room besides the Ursaluna, right? So if they want to go Incineroar on you and just kind of wall out your Dialga and reduce your Ursaluna to where it's doing like no damage, just bring your Urshifu and just say, you know, this is my Incineroar counter here. I'm just going to click Surging Strikes. And yeah, that threat is going to be gone. So I've got my Water Breaker. I've got, you know, my FWG core, Fire, Water, Grass. I think from here, you know, this last slot is up for grabs. You know, we did consider Flutter Mane, you know, just having a Ghost type here. So this way, if they think about clicking a fighting move into these guys, you know, you can always pivot out into your Flutter Mane here. And then you get another special attacker on the board besides Dialga-Origin. This also works too, right? And then at the same time, you have something against Koraidon, for example, right? You have a good solid Fairy type. So we went with 2 builds here. We went with Flutter Mane in one version. And I think Flutter, you know, just having that secondary special attacker on the team besides Dialga, I think is good. But in itself, we decided to also go with just straight Pelipper here for a few reasons. One, of course, we get access to Wide Guard. And 2, we get the Rain Out where we can ruin Miraidon's day. I'm sorry, not Miraidon, Koraidon's day. And then make our own Urshifu do a little bit more damage. And also pressure Incineroar this way, you know, with the Pelipper having access to Weather Ball. In itself, right? So, you know, and it's still a pretty decent special attacker, you know, especially if you go the modest set, where it's still doing like good solid damage, you know, with Weather Ball and Hurricane in that sense, right? So this is the team that we went with, right? So look, you got Intimidate and Fake Out pressure, you have Redirection support along with Sport pressure, you have some breaker damage, you know, with the Urshifu. Same thing with the Ursaluna, your physical Trick Room sweeper. Dialga is a special Trick Room sweeper. And then Pelipper comes in and also supports and comes in different matchups where, you know, maybe you do need the Wide Guard against stuff like both Calyrexes and Terrapagos, for example. So, and again, we also said that we did need some fighting coverage here. So, you know, Urshifu was also important. We also even considered Iron Hands there in that slot just to have that option, you know, just for drain punch pressure. But, you know, we just decided like slow, bulky Urshifu is just like going to be so good. Especially if you can do like Fake Out Surging Strike stuff where you can kind of pin a lot of different slots and just do it that way. So this is the team. So again, the core was the Dialga Ursaluna idea where you can just take advantage of Earthquake, Telepathy stuff, and then just support with like a bunch of standard staples and, you know, just round out the team in that way, right? And again, I will show you the secondary build with Flutter Mane here after we test out the team and after we flesh out this version. All right, so let's go back and let's finish off the sets and let's do some EV spreads and let's test the team out. Okay, so now back over here, we've already rounded out the Dialga and Ursaluna sets here. We'll do Terras at the end. Let's do Incineroar here, very standard instant set. So Fake Out, Parting Shot, of course. Then we'll have Knockoff. You know, just being able to have dark damage pressure against both Calyrexes is going to be nice. Removing key items, removing sashes. Well, of course, you're dealing chip damage anyway. And then from there, I just think something like Willows is going to be good, just in terms of what we want our Incineroars to do. So, you know, you can also go for Flare Blitz here if you really need to, but I think just crippling opponents with Willows is also, you know, quite solid here. And then Safety Goggles, of course. Then after that, you know, the Amoongus very standard Amoongus set here. We'll go Rocky Helmet, just so that we can break sashes this way, of course. Spore, Pollen Puff, and then Rage Powder, of course, you know, for redirection, and then Protect. So you can even do stuff like Dialga, Amoongus leads, you know, click Rage Powder, set up Trick Room. They remove the Amoongus, and then you can start sweeping with the Ursaluna, right? So, you know, you can always consider that. And don't forget, you know, even though you're taking Burn Chip, you can always heal yourself with the Amoongus, so you have that going for you. And then the Amoongus can kind of shield the Ursaluna against stuff like Urshifu, right? Because, you know, you don't want to take close combats, or you don't want to take Surging Strikes. Amoongus doesn't really care about that, so if you can get into that position, that's also going to be good for you. But yeah, anyway, this Surging Strikes, close combat. I did like Taunt here. I felt like I had some good value out of that in some games where you can just deny certain setup moves, and just really force them to switch out and be out of position, right? Because, you know, if you're just taunted on the field, sometimes your support Pokemon just doesn't have any value if you can't click its support moves after a taunt. Then Pelipper here. I think after this, we just click Protect here. We just kept it pretty standard. This was our Focus Sashmon. Okay, so we simply went 252, 252 on this Pelipper. You know, in that sense, just having like decent speed. Now, of course, you can do something like this, where you could just max the HP and just go defense, you know, that, and not really have any speed on the Pelipper. Like, you can do that. I do think you want some speed just to outspeed some Incineroars in that sense. But if you don't value that, then you can just do, you know, all of it in speed, and it just really doesn't matter after that, right? Now, in terms of the Terras here, so I feel like there's 3 Terras that you can really consider on Dialga. The first one is going to be Fairy, right? Where, of course, what's one way to really deal with Dialga? Click a fighting move against it. So if you don't want to get destroyed by close combat or drain punches, you can go Terra Fairy and resist the fighting move that way. You can also use this against other dragon types if you feel necessary, and also make the ground weakness do neutral damage, right? So you can do that. You can also consider Grass for that reason. Again, if you're fearing, you know, ground type coverage against you, Grass is going to resist it. And then at the same time, in Trick Room, Dialga is just not going to care about Spore from Amoongus. I think Terra Grass is a very good option. And then at the same time, the last one here, Terra Ghost. So, you know, I feel like if you don't have Protector, you can go Ghost here as well. So what you can do is just, again, if you fear Fake Out, or if you fear the fighting move, it can whiff against you by just going Terra Ghost. And my advice is, if you want Earth Power here, I think Ghost is going to be very good. Just because, again, you don't have Protect, so you can't really shield yourself from the fighting move or, you know, the Fake Out stuff. So I think this is better. But if you want to run Protector, I think Grass or Fairy is going to be solid as well. Just a little bit more than the Ghost Terra. But I do think those 3 Terras are going to be the best option for Dialga. All right, Ursaluna here, same reason. You know, we just went Terra Ghost here. Again, the fighting move sometimes is very dangerous from us against the Ursaluna. It is pretty physically bulky, but at the same time, we don't want to take any super effective moves that we don't need to take. And how about, let's go for the trifecta, the Trinity, right? Let's go triple Terra Ghost here, especially on our Incineroar here. Again, you know, 3 fighting because it's not so great, but this is why you have the Terra options available to you. All right, Amoongus here, just Terra Water was very solid, especially against, you know, just you know, fire type super effective damage. Same thing here, the Urshifu Terra Water was also solid, just more strong damage in the essence. And the Pelipper here, you know, a couple things you can do with Pelipper. You can go Ghost Terra as well, but it really, I very seldomly would Terra this, you know, but if you had to, I think Ghost is also going to be pretty good here. Otherwise, you can just also go Terra Water if you're for a little bit more damage. You can also go Ground Terra, you know, again, because you're 4 times weak to electric attacks, you know, Miraidon stuff. So you can also go Terra Ground Pelipper. You can also go Terra Grass for that reason. I think that's also going to be solid, you know, ignore the Amoongus. So, you know, lots of different Terra options you can consider on the Pelipper. But again, we seldomly would Terra this, but just showing you the options here. But anyway, back to Dialga. So let's do some EV spreads here. So honestly, I think you just want like straight Modest here. And, you know, this is one of the drawbacks for Dialga. You're just forced to commit this item. You know, you can't really do like Assault Vest stuff with Dialga here or some other items. But at the very least, we do appreciate the extra damage without the Life Orb chip. So in that sense, cool. I just went to the bump here 236 investment. So again, if you're trying to play competitive Pokemon, if you're trying to learn how to really do your EV spreads, make sure you understand what EV bumps are. And if you don't, comment in the video below asking what are EV bumps, because it's a very fundamental skill to understand and creating EV spreads. And I will answer you if you ask what are EV bumps here. All right, but again, 272 EVs left. I just want to dump all this into HP, but just be super bulky, have some good survivability, so this way we can set up our Trick Room and even set it up again later on. And then just 1 point in the bulk here and a tiny bit of speed just to round out our EV set here for Dialga. Ursaluna, I just went with 140 HP investment first, because again, this is going to be optimized for reducing the Flame Orb chip over time. And then from here, you know, I just went Brave Nature, obviously, you know, for the attack boost, not really caring about speed here. And then literally going almost max here, okay, because I'm counting for guts here. I want a nice solid even number, so this way, if it's an odd number like this, I don't want decimals here where it'll round down. But I always want my solid even numbers where, again, I don't have to worry about decimals rounding my stats down and then just dumping the rest into special defense like this, right? So it's a bulky Ursaluna on both ends, good physical defense, and then at the same time, you know, you can compensate for your weaker special defense by just adding more your leftover EVs over there, right? The Incin, again, I've always kept my Incins relatively standard here. You can go Impish, of course. I think that's the little bit more popular set just to get the solid defense boost. But again, for me, I've always had good enjoyment out of the Careful Nature Incin, because again, I'm trying to get best of both worlds here. Like, I'm already good physically by just going for Intimidate stuff. So I don't need as much physical defense investment. I'd rather have a little bit more EVs and special defense, so this way I can compensate. But I'm going to the bump here. Second bump in special defense here at 143. And then a little bit of speed, about 85 investment, and then just having 1 point in attack and then dumping the rest into defense. This has always been like my starter Incineroar set when I just need Incineroar on the team. All right, but again, Impish is also like very, very solid. It's a little bit more popular at the moment, considering all the fighting moves that are just being passed around here. All right, Amoongus. Again, the calc, I always go for Amoongus right now in Regulation G. Survive Glacial Lance from Calyrex. Survive Ice Attacks from the Chien-Pao. And what can do that here? This investment. Relax Nature, 236 HP and 236 defense. Again, this is to the third bump in the defensive nature. So good investment there. And then just dump the leftovers into special defense like this. And that's really all we want our Amoongus to do. Just be super bulky on the physical end. Urshifu, almost the same thing in terms of like our attack. We want to go to the third bump there. And then from here, just a tiny bit of speed, just about this much, you know, just to also outspeed potential Pelippers and that's, and you can also go like 119 investment, but I just go to 120. It's always a nice little solid benchmark number. I'm going to go to 192 here, just again for a little bit of optimal recovery against Rillabooms from the opponent's side, because they're going to be more incentivized to bring the Rillaboom, because that's going to reduce our earthquake damage, right? So they want to bring that for sure. And if they do, I want that optimal grassy terrain recovery. So I'm going to put 192 investment. I'm sorry, 132 investment to get that 192 stat, because again, grassy terrain recovery is 1/16 of your HP, and you're going to get nice solid whole number recovery from that by just going to the factors of 16, right? So 192 is one of them. 176 is another one if you go right here, obviously. And then of course 208 would be the next one, but we can't actually go to 208, right? So let's just go to 192 here. And then the rest, we just invest into special defense. And again, what's really good about this is, you know, we're already pretty high on the physical defensive side. Our special defense is not so great, but we have some EVs there to compensate for that. And don't forget Willis on Incineroar for even more physical attack damage reduction, right? So I did like that. Then after that, again, like we did the Pelipper, we just said 252 was all we really needed out of our little bird here, okay? And that's really it. So this was like the first initial version that we built with Dialga, and you can kind of see it's almost pretty standard. We're just really trying to take advantage of the Ursaluna idea with this, and then just support with stuff like Incin and Amoongus for a defensive backbone, you know, fake out pressure, and then from there, just have the Urshifu be your solid breaker damage, you know, especially in Pelipper Rain, it's going to be pretty solid. So, you know, this was it. If you want, again, like we said, we did put Flutter Mane on this slot here for Pelipper. So, you know, no wide guard. and a little bit less damage if you don't bring it with the Urshifu, but you do get another good solid special attacker that you can pair with Dialga, or also potentially switch out into, you know, in case of a fighting move that you can't really whiff out of. All right, so let's go ahead, let's test out the team, and let's see how it looks, and then I'll give you the Flutter Mane version of the squad. All right, so this was against the Shadow Rider matchup, and if you just look at this, Dialga doesn't look great against any of these options, right? You know, it's not like I don't lose to them, but I don't really do big damage. And there's the Rillaboom there, which he definitely wants to bring, because again, it's good damage into Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and it's also good against our own Ursaluna, you know, just super effective damage, and again, reducing Earthquake damage. So in that sense, not so great. And then he's got Calyrex there, but you know, we're just gonna try and make our way around this. And again, this was my advice to our viewer. Again, if you really wanted a bulky Trick Room setter that can do damage, I just think Lunala is just a better option to use. But anyway, we tried to make it work, so here it is. He's going to lead with Tornadus, and he's going to lead with Urshifu here, so that's pretty good for him. Dialga comes in, and here is my Incineroar. So I do get Intimidate. I do have Fake Out Pressure. That's good for me. I Fake Out the Ursh. I don't want to take damage. He goes for Tailwind for some reason. He was already faster. I don't quite understand that play anywhere for Trick Room. So clearly our opponent doesn't understand what Dialga is meant to do here. So I just want to go out from the Urshifu. I want to go into my own Ursh just in case he goes for my slot there into the Incin. And actually Dragon Pulse just removes the Ursh, so he has no bulk there. There is the Rillaboom like we thought he would bring. I just want to protect against the Ursh and just deal some damage into Rillaboom. That's not bad either, okay? At this point, I was actually modest 156, then just modest 236. And for that, that's why I invested a little bit more attack into Dialga. So he goes into the Calyrex here, but look at this pressure against Ursh. He's almost going to be incentivized to switch us right back out to Rillaboom. That's exactly what he does. So I kind of wanted to just, you know, double this slot here and just remove the Rillaboom, because I'm not really worried about Calyrex here. I still have Trick Room up, and my Urshifu is actually still living, even though I did take some Bleak Wind Storm damage. So, you know, Crit would have got the KO there, but of course, our Urshifu is still doing okay here. So even if he protects Calyrex here, we're just going to finish him off. All right, I just want to chip the Tornadus first, but I know I outspeed the Calyrex because I am a slower Ursh, so that's good for me. And that's really it. Like, our opponent didn't really bring enough, I would say. We just had more pressure with the Ursh on the field. So this is what I'm saying, right? Like, Dialga did the job here in starting up Trick Room, but Urshifu was like the real restricted and just having that good solid breaker damage. But Dragon Pulse also was good at removing the original Urshifu that they had, right? So don't underestimate Dialga's damage. All right, so this one's against the Tang's team, right? Justin Tang and Shilian Tang's Kyogre squad with Grimmsnarl and Wo-Chien here. So already, like, things I'm already thinking about is Wo-Chien, you know, reducing my Ursaluna damage. He's, you know, he's got Incineroar on his side. He's also got Snarl pressure from the Iron Jugulus, which is not great for Dialga, by the way. So that's another thing, right? You can always run Covert Cloak on some of your special attack restricteds, right? But, you know, because I have Dialga-Origin, I don't really have that option. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to remove that thing. So I do have to watch out for it. But, you know, it's not even Kyogre that I'm worried about. I haven't even gotten to that yet. So this one was a little bit tricky. But Urshifu does do a lot of damage in the rain, right? So I wanted to use that against him. So there's the Jugulus and there's the Incin, right? So now we just see some potential speed ties here, or see who's faster depending on the Intimidate interaction. But I just wanted to go immediately to Ursaluna here and just try and get rid of that Jugulus. So I know he's going for Snarl there, and I wanted to at least position the Ursaluna to have, you know, Guts pressure next turn, right? So I go into Dialga here. Here's the Ursaluna, right? So there's a Snarl. I do take the hit from Dialga, so that's not great for me. But at the same time, you know, he went for Parting Shot to my Dialga, so now this is -2. But Facade is going to do some decent damage now, right? So it almost removes the Jugulus, right? And I do get Trick Room up, so it's not all bad here, okay? So he protects Jugulus here. I do get the lucky Wo-Chien crit there, so I'm very fortunate that I was able to get that KO, because I was not going to do any damage against that thing, or as much. So my Ursaluna gets intimidated. My Dialga is not doing so much here. He positions Kyogre now, and I still have Trick Room up, but again, not super great. There's my Earthquake. It still does decent chip into Incin, right? Still, like, Really good because again, he's jolly. He has no bulk on that instant. I know how they did their EV spread. Goes back into Jugulus. You know, obviously to avoid the earthquake damage. My opponent's playing really well here, but he's not really dealing that much damage right back. So he's been positioning a lot. Now he goes for Origin Pulse. Again, not enough to KO the Ursaluna because he missed. I feel like that could have just won him the game, but you know, now he goes back into Instant here. You know, you see we've done so much chip damage, and we really actually took good advantage of our Trick Room here, even though our damage was a little bit mitigated on both sides. It's because he spent so much time trying to get around our Mons that he just really wasn't dealing as much damage as he wanted. So I feel like this was a bit of a misplay. I wanted to reset Dialga here and just sack the Instant, but what I could have also done was just do fake out pressure stuff and then just bring in the Urshifu in the end game here, right? I felt like that would have been better, so this was a little bit of a mistake by me. But anyway, I do get Urshifu in the rain here. I wanted to just remove this Kyogre here, so he goes for Hurricane. So I do end up surviving. I just remove the Jugulus there. Okay, and Origin Pulse, we do live, so there's our Urshifu bulk. And then I just set up Trick Room, and that's pretty much it. He has nowhere, he can't really do anything anymore. But yeah, once we got our Trick Room up, we were okay. So I dodged some bullets here, just because the Origin Pulse missed. But it was a little bit tricky in maneuvering this matchup here, but we were able to do it just because our opponent wasn't really putting on pressure immediately while we still were. We were chipping things down, even though we were, mitigated in terms of our damage. But again, that just shows you the strength of Dialga and Ursaluna, even after one Intimidate or one Snarl. Okay, this one's against Lunala here, so another weird team, but again, another Wo-Chien. And then there's another Heatran. Like, if you've been seeing some of our recent Ballad videos, there's been some increase in a tick of usage of Heatran, and I guess I kind of understand the Flash Fire stuff. It's gonna be good, against something like Koraidon going for Flare Blitzes, but again, you're still weak to fighting stuff, so I wonder the reasoning behind this. But at the end of the day, Wo-Chien Lunala is a good pairing. You reduce physical damage, and Lunala is already bulky on the special side. You've got Comfey here, so I guess bring you back to full health here. So you have that going for you. And then there's the Goodra there. That could be a little bit problematic. But again, we've got Ursaluna here. So, it does look pretty good against the Heatran and the Goodra. But in itself, Dialga, I don't know what you do. You just do big damage, right? And that's really it. So I'm going to go Dialga. I'm going to go Urshifu here, right? So what I want to do is just use the fact that I have Taunt against the Goodra. I do not want that thing setting up body presses. So I'm going to stop him from setting up Shelter. I just want to break the Lunala, Shadow Shield first. And he was going for pressure, right? So, I'm sorry, the Shelter stuff, right? So I just want to do damage into Lunala. This doesn't KO, it just shows you the bulk that it has. Dazzling Game, we're able to take it. He goes for Body Press. Dialga takes it like a champ because Goodra has no setup here. I go for Trick Room, which is good. It makes the Goodra a little bit faster. I just wanted to chip it first. I felt like I could have chipped the Lunala, but, that's a mistake on my part. But, all is not lost. Okay, now we go into Ursaluna here. Unfortunately, it's not on the same turn, so I do need one more turn to set up. I want to at least protect Dialga first. And at this point, we did not have Earth Power on this set. So, yeah, but he just ignores the Dialga, just goes for the Ursaluna here, right? But this is still okay. He goes for a Comfey. He could just go for straight healing. He actually just protects it. I think that's a mistake. I feel like you really want to at least extend your Goodra's longevity here, so I just remove it immediately with the earthquake damage that I'm getting for Ursaluna here, right? Then he goes for Gastrodon. All right, Gastrodon outspeeds everything we have. Goes for Muddy Water. We tank everything. Gastrodon's damage is not all that great. I go for Facade. Gastrodon almost gets removed. And this was the point where my Ursaluna was still 156 adamant. That's where I really bumped it up to almost max. Because I was a little bit unsatisfied that we missed out that KO on that Gastrodon there, but we're still able to beat everything else just because he brought a lot of his passive mons. He had a passive team in general, like Goodra, Gastrodon, Comfey. These are all passive Pokemon. The only thing that was really dealing damage was Lunala, but we removed that immediately. And once we did that, I felt like he couldn't really catch back up with his passive mons. So, in that sense, we were able to close things out there. All right, this is the alternate Flutter Mane that we can have here instead of the Pelipper. So what I would do here is I would just do Booster Flutter with Protect, obviously, and then just go straight Moonblast here. Now, again, Moonblast is going to be good against other fighting types. They're going to want to be brought against your Dialga, Ursa, and Incineroar stuff. So having a fairy type like Flutter Mane actually helps a lot here. And then look at this. You get your Dragon Fairy Steel idea here with Flutter Mane at the same time. So you have Moonblast. I do think Shadow Ball can be interesting in certain cases. It's been dropped a little bit more in regulationG at this point for stuff like Icy Wind and Taunt, but I still think it's pretty solid. Dazzling Gleam here. You know, spread damage is going to be good overall, like good strong fairy damage. And of course, we're going to go Terra Fairy here. But I'm just going to go like my simple standard set here. At the very least, we can have a fast mode to the team. So I still want to go Timid and go 189, outspeed, you know, at least the modest 135s or the adamant 135s like Chen Power Miraidon stuff. And then from there, just make this thing super bulky. Go with my standard 60 investment here with 1 point in special defense, and then just go like 116. And then, you know, 204 build, 116, 196 idea. This was good enough for surviving Chen Pao stuff, so I still went with this set. This was one of my favorite Flutter Mane sets to be able to use, especially with Booster Energy and Protect. So I still like this idea. And if you like this version better as opposed to Pelipper, then you can definitely go this route with the Booster Energy Flutter Mane. Otherwise, I think Pelipper is also a very, very good option here with wide guard potential and, you know, just bringing out the rain and, you know, boosting your Urshifu damage. But I do think Flutter Mane is also like a very, very solid option to have with Dialga-Origin at the same time. All right, so that's it. Let us know what you think of this Dialga team. If you want to use it, here's the Pokepaste. We'll put both versions in the video description below. And again, you're interested in building a team yourself and you need a little bit of help rounding it out, feel free to do a tier 3 sub request to the channel. And then from there, you're able to message me on Discord, and then we can plan a meeting on Discord and build you the squad that you want, you know, with EVs flushed out and all. But again, you can join the Discord. It's actually free to join the Discord, so do that. But again, once you do unlock that tier 3 sub onto the channel, make sure you message me on Discord, and then from there, we'll go from there. All right. But yeah, that's it. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.